Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and very excited today on the show we have Eric Feng. Look at that mug! My goodness.
Cup of Joe.
There you go. So we have Eric Feng today on the show. Eric is a global speaker. He's a social media influencer. He's a sales expert. He's a beautiful person. I look like a homeless person compared to you now, but very excited to have you on the show, Eric.
Oh, I'm so excited. Can we bring your cup up again? I like your cup.
Yes, there we go.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Nice.
Beautiful cups. So
yeah,
I
just did a little bit of background check. Do you realize we actually know each other for a very long time? 5 years. 05.
Yes. So you are one of the first people that I met when I moved to Singapore. So funny story for people who are watching. Eric and I were one of the first people that were invited to speak at LinkedIn. I think it was about 20 people at the time. We were the quote unquote power profiles. And so, we just know each other throughout that time. I think one thing that always comes up to mind is I've only met Eric a couple of times. We've conversed, but he is by far one of the most magnetic speakers and just people in general. I think that is one thing. Everyone always asks me, who is the best speaker you've seen, at least a local speaker? And I'm always like, you got to check out Eric Feng.
Okay, now I'm shy.
It's true. It's true. I mean, I think a couple of different things I think you do that stand out. One of which is just your personality and just your for lack of better words, charisma. And so I'm the exact opposite. So I think it's one of the reasons why I want to have this chat with you, because people who are maybe not as naturally charismatic as you are, what are some of the things they can do, particularly on social media and offline, to help build up their presence? Now, I know you're very active on social media. We're talking about, you've been spending a lot of time on Instagram and TikTok now. What are some of the key learnings from being on those platforms for the past several years?
Well, I think most importantly, we are still in a people's game. So I guess a lot of time people forget that, social media, the keyword is social, and social means people. And so a lot of times when business people or entrepreneurs or salespeople that go on social media, the very first thing to think about is, how do I get sales on social media? How do I get business? How do I get publicity? All these are wrong questions, because the very first thing you need to understand is we're playing an attention game, right? Our job is to be able to capture the attention of the people on social media. Well, the advantage is there's a lot of people, there's infinite people, but the question is, why should they follow you? So I think the most important question that all of us need to ask ourselves when we're on any social media platform is, what's our value proposition to our followers? Because if you're not clear about that, then the only people that will follow you are really just your family and friends, and you will never grow.
No, that's a very good point. I think too many salespeople I see, particularly in Asia and around the world, think about social media as a platform to sell, as you rightly said. So you see things like hard selling, you see a lot of product demos and things like that, where you're saying the goal should be to capture attention of your audience.
And tactically is to capture the attention of your audience. But if you look at it from the big picture, we need to understand that life is still a popularity game. We used to think in school it's all about popularity, right? But in this entire business world, it's still popularity. People still buy people first. So in other words, before people are open to your influence, they're going to first ask themselves, do I know you? Do I like you? Do I respect you? Because if I don't like you as a person and I don't respect you as a professional, then I will never be open to your influence. So that actually becomes the entire benchmark or metrics, so to speak, when you're on social media, which is K, L, and R. That step one is to get attention, to get people to know you. And then step two is to get those people to like you as a person first. Because no point being a knowledgeable person if you're not likable, right? Because people buy people first. So they need to like you as a person. Then they respect you as a professional. Then sales happens. So we have to follow the sequence K, L, and R. Unfortunately, most people are trying to go to the R without going K and L. That's why they get in trouble.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. I see a lot of people trying to use shortcuts, and I think you and I have been doing this for many, many years, and so it's definitely not something that's happened overnight. So I want to find out more about attention, because one of the things that is becoming increasingly more difficult is, let's talk about financial advisors, because you and I work with a lot of financial advisors. that space is usually incredibly crowded. I mean, look at
Yeah.
Singapore. There are tons of financial advisors. So what are some of the things that you would recommend for them to really stand out and capture attention, because it's really, really get tough these days?
Well, I would say that step number one is to know who you want to attract. So yes, as much as insurance, it's a service that is uniform across all platforms, right? That means it doesn't matter which company you come from. Generally, from a consumer point of view, insurance is insurance. In other words, your differentiator, right, it's not insurance. It might not even be your knowledge. It might not even be your knowledge. So I think the two areas where you could stand out on social media for insurance people is the audience that you're serving and your own unique personality. Because if you think about it, right, first of all, you need to understand how people do business with an insurance agent. It's a lot about first liking the insurance agent before we even trust the person enough to share with them our financial plans. So therefore, that's the same objective that an insurance agent needs to have on social media. And that is he or she needs to attract his dream customers, and he or she needs to be likable enough for them to then initiate a conversation in order to show off his knowledge. So I would say two questions, two actionables. Number one is for all of you, if you're an insurance agent or even if you're an entrepreneur, go study your best customers. Your best customers generally have three criteria. Number one, they have high disposable income. Number two, you have a lot of chemistry with them. And what is chemistry? Chemistry means that even if one day you are a millionaire and you do not need this business anymore, you would still want to have a cup of Joe with them. That's real chemistry. Otherwise, you just want to be with them because they are profitable to you. And the last one is they have a network. They are influential, or they have a great personality, so they have a huge social circle. So these are the three metrics that I define your best customers. Now, so out of the 100 customers that you might have already accumulated pre-COVID-19, now look at who are those best customers. And then once you identify them, give them a phone call. Ask them, which social media platform are you on? What time are you on that social media platform? Who do you follow on social media? Because those answers will give you a very clear idea of which platform to be on, when to post your content, and where are all your followers hanging out. Because birds of the same feather flock together. Like if I want Joe as my customer, I need to ask Joe what groups he joined, who he follows, because chances are the people that he follows are going to be my best customers too. Are you following?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's the attention piece.
I think that makes perfect sense. Like you said, the birds will feather flock together. One thing that I want to find out more about, you mentioned the ideal customer is a couple different things. You mentioned high disposable income as well as the network.
Chemistry.
The chemistry and the network. Chemistry, I think, will be variable depending on once you meet that person. Maybe you can do some research on them beforehand, get a sense of their personality. But I'm keen to find out for the first and the third one, the high disposable income and then the network. How do you assess that if you are, you've never met them before? Let's just say you found someone on social media.
I got you. Oh, no. So when I use these three metrics is to assess your existing customers. Because I'm using your existing customers to measure the DNA to be able to then photocopy more, so to speak.
Got it. Okay, that makes perfect sense. Let's say you're just getting started. You're a new entrepreneur, a new salesperson, and you haven't really built up that client base yet. How can you go about doing the research? Like you said, finding out
points. Then chemistry will be your best bet at the beginning, because you'll never know whether a person has high disposable income or not. And anyway, since you're new in this business, you should not be too selective, right? You're building your experience and you're building your fan base. So I would say that if you are new in the business, you look at two things. Number one, look at markets that you have a lot of knowledge about. So maybe perhaps you're like an insurance agent again. I recently coached one who actually used to work with lawyers quite a bit in her capacity as a HR manager. So I say that since you have so much knowledge and access to the lawyer market, then why not you start with that market? Because that's a way you can differentiate yourself, right? Because there are two ways to differentiate. One is you differentiate by the market you serve, or two is by your personality. So I would say, number one, ask yourself which market do you have a lot of knowledge about, or which market do you have the easiest access to. Go after those markets first. They're all your low-hanging fruits. And then once you build 1 or 2 years of experience, Then you can decide for yourself, do you want to focus or do you want to move? So like, Joe, when I met you in 2015, insurance wasn't my dream market yet because I wasn't very much exposed to that market. But you know how there's a saying, right? Have you ever tried buffet in Singapore?
Yeah.
We eaten a buffet. So it's like a lot of times, I'm sure your students ask you that question, like, which market should I go for? It's like you asking us, which food tastes good at a buffet? We won't know. You got to taste it. You got to try it. Then you know what food you like. So for every piece of the food, you take a little bit, you try. So every piece of the market, you take a little bit and you try. And then you go where you celebrate it. Right? At the beginning, that's how you build your XP and your experience. And then your customers will tell you, right, whether are you a good fit for them. Because sometimes if you serve a market and you're not getting the results you want, it may not be your fault. It's just that it's not a good fit. Then you move on to the next market.
I love that buffet analogy. I'm going to use that and quote you next time. I think it's
lunchtime after all,
Yeah, exactly. So funny stories. I actually know the person you're talking about. I told the exact same thing. So yes, because I told her one of those things that if you come from a particular background, if whether you're in HR or in accounting or law, and you have like that deep experience, it makes sense because it's easier, like you were saying, to have that conversation. If I'm been doing marketing and sales my entire life, and I try to sell to accountants all of a sudden, it's gonna be an uphill battle. Not to say that I can't do it, but it won't be the easiest route for me.
Very true.
So I think it's a very good point of kind of speaking to who you already know or someone who fits a similar kind of background as you, because it's far easier to have that connection, that chemistry, as you were saying. So very, very good points. And like I said, because you've been active so long on social media, what are some of the things that you're finding have really helped build your presence?
I feel self-awareness is extremely important because one of the things that people tend to do is like, for example, if I want to go on LinkedIn, then maybe I look at Joe. I'll say, oh my God, Joe is so influential on LinkedIn. Let's take a look at what he's doing. I'm going to do the same thing. So that's what people tend to do. And that is antithesis to branding on social media. Because if you look at the root word of branding, it's actually differentiation. The word branding came about a long time ago where we were trading cows, and Joe wants my cow, I want Joe's rice. But how I know which cow belongs to Joe? So Joe brands the cow, right? So he will chop a certain print on the cow, and that's in Old English, branding means chopping something on a cow to differentiate the cow from another cow. So a lot of times when we do branding, right? And what's branding? Branding is about helping your dream customers know you, like you, and respect you, right? That's brand. And that usually leads to a sales opportunity. But a lot of people tend to model, and that doesn't work, right? Modeling success works when it comes to, business ideas and practices and innovation. But when it comes to building personal brand, you can't model because at best you'll be just a copycat. So I would say that it requires a lot of self-awareness, and the self-awareness comes in the form of, number one, a basic way is understanding your preferred mode of communication. Because ultimately, social media is a communication platform. Are you someone that's a lot more natural in speaking or writing or talking on the phone without a camera on you, right? What's your best way of expression? And for a person like myself that is extremely expressive, as Joe has pointed out, then video would be extremely great for me because it helps if you can see my expression so that you can understand what I'm saying. But then there's some people who are extremely thoughtful and analytical. They really do very well with their words. They can paint pictures in your mind when it comes to words. Or some of us have an amazing voice, and therefore podcasts will have worked better. So I would say, number one, at a basic level, is to find out which communication mode are you most comfortable with. Start with that. Then look for a platform that celebrates that. Okay. Then number two is understand what makes you unique or what makes you stand out from everybody else. So a very simple exercise you could do is go talk to your dream customers and ask them, what do they like best about you? Like, they have worked with so many people, right? What do they like about you? What makes you stand out from other insurance agents or other entrepreneurs out there? Listen to the keywords that they bring up and then collect the answers together. You'll notice a common pattern. So for example, I did exercise years ago and I asked them, like, what makes me stand out? And they said that, Eric, you are very relatable. That was a word that kept coming up. Now, back then, I have no idea what the word relatable means. So I say, what do you mean by relatable? They say, well, you don't really show us the cars and the houses that you live, but you constantly show us the behind the scenes. And we felt like you're somebody who is also hustling as hard as us, and therefore we can relate to you. So, and the cool thing is, when you ask your customers what they like about you, it's also to check whether is that really you. And the truth of the matter is, that's really who I am. I'm goofy, you know, I do song covers, I do a lot of stupid stuff, right? But people can relate because people like that I'm flawed. And therefore, I amplify that on my social media platform. So number one, I'm being more of myself, but that being more of myself attracted those people that I want more of. Because guys, remember this, whatever content you put out there, you will attract your followers. The question is this content authentic to you? Because if you keep putting up, maybe let's say you keep flaunting your wealth because you want to do recruitment, right? You keep flaunting your wealth, then you're going to attract young people who are just attracted by money. And therefore, one day when they make all the money, they will leave you because there's no loyalty. Because that's the kind of people you attract. So I'll say, to answer your question in a nutshell, it's really self-awareness. And that self-awareness comes from asking your best customers what makes you stand out and amplify on those characteristics so you can attract more of those people.
No, I think it's a very, very good point of asking them and finding out that answer. I think another thing you brought up that was really nice is, you know, showcasing some of the flaws. I think a lot of people think of social media, particularly in Instagram and things like that, is you have to be perfect. You have to have a six-pack abs, and you have to, you have to have a Bentley in the background and things like that, which is not necessarily the case on a lot of different platforms. So you said people want to understand the flaws. And another thing you mentioned, which I don't see many people doing, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is the behind the scenes. I know this is something you do very well, but can you share more of what you mean by sharing behind the scenes of your life on social?
Got it. So we need to be careful though that, you know, we do not use our social media platform as a platform to vent, because a lot of times when we say show our flaws, it means that we're showing our weaknesses, our mistakes, and our flaws. But you have to understand that at the end of the day, you have to be a person of value. So what's the value that you're giving to people when you are communicating your behind the scenes? So it doesn't matter what's your behind the scene, but it has to fulfill one of the 4 criteria. Number one, it has to be practical. It means there's something we can learn from it. Or it is funny. Funny itself is already valuable, right? Or it is relatable, as in whatever that you're going through is what we are also going through at that moment. And therefore creates connection. Or last one is inspiring. So there is a certain victory in that behind the scene. Otherwise, it's just called ranting. Then you shall put it out there. Okay. So like if I'm complaining about somebody, like, you know, I behind the scene, I was dealing with a staff and I can't stand her, you know, she's horrible, incompetent. Now, if I post that, then what am I doing? Is it funny? No, it's not funny. Is it practical? I haven't learned anything from that story yet. Is it inspiring? Not at all. And is it relatable? Maybe, but what's the point? Can you see that? There's a big difference.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And this is something I'm experimenting with recently across all my different channels, whether it's newsletter or social media, is trying to showcase, I don't know if it's the flaws, but the journey. So for example, the journey as an entrepreneur, just showcasing, people see now, they see the Fortune 500 clients, they see, well, I don't have any Bentleys or Rolexes, but they see kind of that prestige or kind of platform. What they don't see is kind of the back end stuff, like you were saying, all the failures, all the pitches I lost, all the, you know, the deals that went wrong, things like that. So I think that's something I'm experimenting with recently, and just making that switch in terms of being, sharing a bit more of my journey has been tremendous. Like I've never gotten so many positive messages, whether it's via the newsletter or via, social, saying, you know, I can really relate to that, because once again, it's one of those things that not everyone is winning all the time. It's not life. It's not realistic.
Exactly.
So
people want to see the process, right? Because sometimes we learn best when we see how you do it. Like, see, for example, even for myself, I teach people how to build their following on a social media platform. But you know, I'm really quite established in Facebook and Instagram. So people would have the thought that, well, you're already established, so everything you do is easy. So that's why recently I started Twitter, I started TikTok, which I'm fairly new on that platform, just so that I can show them that the process is the same. So they get inspired as well. Even though I'm starting new, I'm like super noob on those platforms. but they get to see that, hey, if Eric is also willing to make mistakes and his content is not getting the engagement he wants at the beginning, then that means me getting very little engagement at the beginning is normal because it's part of the process. Can you see that? So as long you're behind the scenes, serve any of that for purpose, it's all good behind the scenes. Otherwise, you should just have a blog or a journal.
No, I think it's a very good point of kind of sharing the process as well. I think people want to see that. And I think a lot of times the best marketers, salespeople, entrepreneurs at the end of the day are educators. At least from what I've seen, is those who, like you said, share the process, but do it in a practical way so people can actually take what they're doing, not replicate it, but take some of the principles or some of the things that they like and apply it to their own business, and apply it to their own personal brand. So really making that shift between, as you were talking about earlier, is trying to sell versus trying to educate them or entertain them. That's the best way to kind of build that brand. And another thing you talked about, which I think not enough people talk about, and I spoke about this recently, is, you know, if you're not getting a lot of traction, at least you're not getting a lot of engagement, doesn't mean that people are not watching your videos or they're not reading your posts. I think it's something that I realized recently when I started doing more direct messages with my connections. So I did a podcast last week. The person had never you know, engaged with any of my content. He's been following me for the past couple of years. He's bought my book. He's like all this stuff. And all of a sudden I direct messaged him. He's like, oh yeah, I would love to have you on the podcast we do. So I actually shot it last week, but it's one of those things that I had no idea if I didn't take that first step to just find out, you know, hey, how are you doing? You know, connected for a while and things like that. So I think particularly in Asia as well, I mean, I count myself because I've been here for 13 years, is that there is that kind of discomfort when it comes to building relationships online, whether it's conversing with people or direct messages. Have you experienced something like that? And how did you get around it?
Well, I would say in general, we have a lot of passive users on social media. I mean, these are people that just want to swipe your stories or they just want to read your videos, but they will not comment, they will not like, you know, for whatever reasons. So I guess we can't control that, but we can always incentivize people from engaging with us. So that's what I usually would do, right? So I would make it a point that whenever I create a video or a podcast or anything, to always have a call for action that leads to conversation. And the cool thing is this, it's like a Singapore phenomenon, I suppose. Like, you know, I used to sell food at a market, right? At a store. And when there's no one queuing up for my food, no one queues up for my food. But the minute when 5 people queue up for my food, I get 10 people queuing up for my food. So it's the same thing with social media. The minute you see 3 to 4 people engaging with your content at the beginning, all of a sudden everybody jumps in. Isn't that the same thing in a live Q&A? You always have the biggest problem getting the first person to ask the question. Yeah. But the minute the first person asks the question and they realize that, hey, people don't judge that question. That was a stupid question, but people didn't judge it. People were having fun. Okay, you know what? I'm going to try it, right? So I suppose that people just need catalysts. So you always have your hot fans. So like I have my group of fans that always know what time I'm posting. So they're always there to post. And they are the one that lead the pack, lead the tribe. And meanwhile, what I do is I incentivize, right? I create call for actions. I give people incentive to engage with me, and it becomes a habit that, oh, when every time Eric posts, we're expected to go like it, And I even explained to them, I said that, hey, you guys need to like, because if you don't, then the algorithm will think that you don't like my post, you won't get to see it again. And they'll go, oh, okay, then I better hit the like button, because that's how the algorithm works, right? If you don't hit the like button, if I don't like your post, I'm telling LinkedIn that I don't like your stuff, and then LinkedIn will not show it to me anymore. So I guess educating them, letting them know that it's not just about validating us, but it's that there is a purpose, and people will do it.
That's a brilliant point. I had never thought about that. You know, just putting it out there and telling them how the algorithm works. Like I said, if you don't,
I would even tell them to share. I say that, hey, I hope this video make you laugh. Wouldn't it be nice if someone else can laugh as well? If you hit the share button, you're doing that. So if you tell people the value, you don't just tell them share, but if you tell them the value of why they should share, tell them the value of why they should comment, tell them the value of why they should like, people will do it.
I think that's a very good point. And like I said, I always equate it to like a networking party. People are not just going to come to you and start talking unless you, a lot of times, ask a question. So something that I do, and I'd love to hear more about your thoughts on call to actions, is I always try to ask a question at the end of a post. Say, what are your thoughts on this? Or what am I missing from this list? Or You know.
Oh, well, I would say that when it comes to call to actions, if your
Yeah.
consumers, your subscribers have never engaged with you, then asking a question might not be a good idea because they're not gonna commit an answer. So it might be maybe start small, like hit a like or hit a share first. That would be the most basic action, or comment teacup. If you believe that that's also true. So the lesser they commit to your action, the better at the beginning, right? And then after that, you can then encourage them to do it. In fact, because you run a lot of live classes,
Yeah.
so what you can also do is you can first create a post in advance, and then once you finish running the class, you tell everyone, hey guys, I want you now to go to my LinkedIn post and let me know what's a question you would love to ask me, or let me know what's your biggest takeaway. So because these are all your potential people that are going to be following you, right? But now, because we're in the moment, we are learning, they are in the mood to type, then you bring them in. You get a lot more engagement.
Okay, so if I heard that correctly, let's say I'm doing a Zoom webinar session, some kind of training online, and I have the post that I've already written. I would maybe share my screen, or maybe just...
Yes. So you share your screen and say, hey guys, this is relevant to what we just talked about. I want you to just spend 1 minute looking at it, or you can summarize it. Okay, now I'd like you guys to go to this link, either take a QR code or just go to my LinkedIn profile and let me know your comments.
Okay.
So you're training them, you see, because these guys are going to follow you later on LinkedIn, right? But you see, their first action they take on your LinkedIn page to leave you a comment. So that becomes their relationship with you. You've already primed them that when you join Joe's page, you are expected to be commenting. You follow?
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to try that out because I've never done that before. And usually after a session, people will send me connection requests and they'll send like a private message. Very heartfelt ones, very nice ones. But yeah, I've never gotten
get them to do that because, I think we need to lead. We need to because they're mainly passive. Not all, but they can be quite passive. So we just need to nudge them a little bit and create new habits.
That's another thing that I've tried recently. I want to get your thoughts on
in
this.
America, we don't even need to do that. In America, I mean, I studied in America, so people are so vocal. Like I remember when I was in school, right? A professor asked a question. I could count the number of people who are not raising their hands rather than counting the number of people who raise their hands. But in Asia, that's a different thing. It's a switch. Like, people don't ask hands because they don't want to look stupid, or they felt that they don't want to be too enthusiastic. I know it's just a weird thing, but I think we are changing it. We're changing that habit.
I experienced the same thing when I was in Australia last year because I had done a bunch of sessions across Asia, and we did one session in Australia, and it was just flooded with questions to the point we had to cut it off. So yeah, I think there is a bit of a cultural nuances there, which is why I think that what are some of the things that you could do in Asia where, like you said, there's a lot of passive people who are engaging with it. One thing that I've tried, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, is at the end of a training session, I would say like, if you found this helpful, share your key learnings using this hashtag. So whatever that hashtag is, share it on.
Nah, too much commitment. I've seen trainers do that. Too much commitment. At a conference, maybe. Where everybody is still in the learning mode, possibly. And it's quite nice because we can do the ranking so that we can see which is the top learning key takeaway, and then we can incentivize them again, give them a prize or something. But I would say that, Joe, I would say for the sake of engagement, right? It's better that you create a post, they put it there. You can still put a hashtag so that when people search for the hashtag, they will find all those posts and all your comments. But it helps you a lot. It helps your algorithm. It helps them to tell, because every time they like and comment, right? Comment is higher value than like. They're actually signaling to the social media platform that you are a valuable connection. Therefore, they will see more of your content. So it will work to your favor.
No, I love the idea, and this is, like I said, something I'm taking away from this personally, is the whole idea of the minimum commitment when it comes to call to actions.
Yes.
I think particularly in Asia, where, like you said, you will not get a lot of kind of very in-depth conversations.
Just think of it like a live session, like give a high five to the person. It's easy, right? Tell your person your deep dark secret. Whoa, that's difficult. So we usually take it easy, like tap the person or tell the person, hey, you look good, right? So these are the same thing that we transfer that into our social media world. Small commitments, and we train them slowly.
You're absolutely right. And I think that's where I see a lot of people struggle when it comes to
Mm.
social media is they forget the common etiquette when it talks when you do like a networking event or like an in-person training. That all flies out the window when you are speaking to, say, maybe an avatar or maybe an emoji or something that it's not a real person, or they say they don't think that another person's on the other side of that screen. So there's always that, like I said, the common etiquette or the way of communicating or the kind of the level of comfort all goes out the window because they forget that another person is on the other side of that screen.
Mm.
They're reading it. Have you seen that as well?
I think lesser now. Like
Yeah,
when I'm on Zoom, I realize that because we do more Zoom webinars, so we can't really see their
yeah,
faces. I
yeah,
feel that they become a lot more responsive on the chat. It's all about priming as well. That means like in the first 1 minute of your Zoom webinar, you should already get them used to interacting with you.
mm,
Yeah, and when so I think it's a lot of us, I feel, as facilitators, to let them
yeah.
know that it's normal for you guys to comment. It's not normal for you to stay too quiet.
Yeah.
So we do a lot of interaction. Yeah, priming, I'll say.
No, I think priming is an excellent thing, and something I try to do as well is asking them questions throughout. So have like different milestones. So if you have like one key learning here, on asking, what are your thoughts or what are your challenges, or even doing like screenshots and saying, what do you think about this? So that's something that I've been trying to make this shift in terms of my own, Zoom and online training is having it more conversational. So for example, we ran a
Mm.
session with about 1,000 people a couple months ago, and once again, it's one of the things I was experimenting with. I was like, it could go terribly wrong, but a lot of people quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Because the reason I did that is because I saw too many webinars where it was just like the speaker stopped talking nonstop. He had a
Yeah.
slide deck, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh gosh, like,
I think it's about like, like a question like, what do you think, right? It's a very high level CTA, high level call to action, because the minute you ask a person to share their opinion, this is where we are very afraid. Because number one, what if we don't have an original opinion? Number two, what if people judge our opinion? So I would say I'll step up my CTA. That
mm,
means at the beginning, it could be as simple as just give me a smiley face or raise your hand in your Zoom. A second CTA could be leave me a yes or no answer. Third one would be vote for A, B, C, D. Which one do you think? Fifth one is do you agree or disagree? And also you step up the CTA so that they don't feel like one shot, whoa, they have to share their opinion, then it gets a bit difficult. So
no,
I
yeah,
usually get them warm up to me first, and near to the maybe in the one third, the second half is when they become more comfortable, and then I'll say
mm,
like, so tell me one thing you like about this post. So I usually try to go positive first, like what's one, because positive everybody don't mind saying, but if they say negative, they say, wow, way people judge me. So
yeah.
usually I get them to do the best parts, like what do you like about this video? And then I would share with them what I don't think this video is working and what y'all think. Y'all feel the same way? And then that's when the questions come. Yeah. So
That's
that's how I would
interesting.
step up.
No, I love the idea of stepping with a call to action. I think it makes
Yeah.
perfect sense, like you said, to get the comfort going. I think I've got the
Mm.
opposite reaction where I usually do the, is this a good or bad post, for example? And people are very happy to tear it apart. I'm like, I think, particularly when they're on
Maybe
chat, they're
you have
like,
already
it's like,
set a
it's terrible.
precedent.
Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
maybe because they've been with you before. That means they know with Joe, they can just be open and they can
Mm,
share. They don't have to worry, or they are comfortable with their tribe. Yeah, and
mm.
that's you training them well. It's conditioning them well.
That's good to know.
Yeah, exactly. So, but you see, the danger is that a lot of times, like if we're so comfortable with speaking to audience that we're very familiar with, we assume that whatever that we do to that group will work when we go to a new audience, like a new country, for
Yeah.
example. So that's why sometimes I forget. Like I'll do things to my community and I realize, oh, it's not working with that country. Then I'll like, oh, of course they don't know who I am. Like they're not comfortable with me yet. So I think it's about awareness of the audience. How hot are they for you?
So it's a really good point. And I think for people who are doing this across region, I think you and I, what are some of the key learnings of adapting, whether it's your communication style or your message, say for different markets? Like we do a lot in Singapore, but we also do work in Indonesia, Malaysia, other parts of Asia. How have you tweaked what you've done? Like you were saying, if they're not so hot on you, or where it's an audience where you've never spoken to before, or maybe
Yeah.
they don't follow you on social media, how do you?
Well, I would say, I mean, I got a beauty of speaking in almost every continent. Like I've spoken in Middle East, I've spoken in Europe, and then Asia, right? I was most nervous about Middle East because, you know, you read so much news about Middle East and you kind of have a certain image of how they would respond to you. But I tell you, they are one of the wildest crowds ever. So I always feel that number one is to always avoid, no matter what country you're in, no matter how comfortable you are with that country, avoid talking about sex, religion, and politics. As long as you avoid these three, you're already fine, because these three are extremely polarizing. So you'll always end up offending half a group of people anyway. So you will not want to do that. As a speaker, your job is to unify, it's not to divide. So number one rule, never talk about sex, religion, and politics, then you're fine. Number two is to share personal stories. Because the minute you share personal stories about your experience, it transcends culture, it transcends language and country. Because all of us can relate to a father's love. All of us can relate to making a mistake and falling on our face. So I noticed that when I go into stories, it works. When I go into memes and GIFs, it works. When I go into smart jokes, it doesn't work. Because when you tell jokes, it requires people to understand context and puns and words, and people's strongest language may not be English. So when I have something funny I want to communicate, I always try to communicate with a picture or a video. It always gets across, because picture tells 1,000 words and stories. Yeah, that's how I deal with different countries. Yeah.
It's a very, very good point. And I try to do that in my sessions as well. I use a lot of different gifts because I think it's far more entertaining, as well as personal stories. Going back to what you're saying in terms of sharing vulnerabilities, I think it's something I try to do, whether it's an in-person or live training, and saying, look, I've been where you've been. So it's not like something that I pulled out of a textbook and said, hey, look at this diagram. This is, this looks nice, right? So I think that helps break the ice as well.
Absolutely.
So I always try to share like I don't know if it's an embarrassing story, but like a story where I learned a lot, could be, downtime. And I think that helps build their rapport initially. And then from there, like you said, it's about facilitating the relationship, and then they're far more comfortable with you and engaging with you. So yes, I think very good points that I try to incorporate as well. So awesome. There's tons of key learnings in here. I personally learned a lot. I know I would. So I'm very excited that you joined it.
How's this? This is going to be like a podcast or a video or
a
how
video.
Do you plan to do it?
Yeah, I'll pull the audio from it now, but it'll be in a video podcast first.
Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. Let me know when it's out. Wait, are you hosting it on LinkedIn?
I will host it on YouTube, and then I'll host it on LinkedIn, and then a couple other different channels.
But LinkedIn is your main platform. I can tell. Like, you're really good at LinkedIn.
That's my go-to place. Yeah.
Yeah. Your capital. The whole social media world. That's your capital, right? LinkedIn.
That's where I spend most of my time.
Let me know when it's out.
Absolutely. And then I'll put the links to where people can find you and things like that.
Yes. If you guys are listening right now,
yes.
I'm also on LinkedIn. I'm probably not as active as Joe on LinkedIn, and the reason is because my followers are the principle of attention is like this: go where the attention is. So my dream customers are mainly on Facebook and Instagram, and that's why I'm there, because I'm doing more B2C. I think Joe does more B2B, right?
Yes.
You deal with a lot of the decision makers. But my market is very interesting. My consumers decide who's the speaker on stage. So it's very strange, right? They are very powerful people. They influence their CAOs. Like, we want this person to be speaking at our platform this year. We learn a lot from that person. So I guess it's because of that I make a conscious switch to Facebook and Instagram. So if you guys watching this or listening to this, you are active on all the platforms, then you can stay in touch with me on Instagram, Eric Goes Global. Are you guys, awesome. Wait, are you on Telegram?
I'm not on Telegram. I know you have a Telegram group, right?
Telegram is hot. Okay, well, let's say in Joe's podcast, Telegram is trending. It's going to be one of the trending communication platforms. Well, if we have a chance in future, I'll share with you more about Telegram. But recently I started a Telegram channel. You know why? Because the social media algorithm changes so fast. You are a pro in LinkedIn. I will want to pick your brain on LinkedIn one day. So I have friends who would teach me TikTok, Twitter, and then there's Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So what I do is, as I learn about all these social media rules and regulations and algorithm and tricks and hacks, I would share them directly on my Telegram. So my Telegram channel becomes my notebook. So you guys can also look me up there. If you have Telegram, just search for latest social media hacks. Latest social media
Nice.
hacks. In fact, you know what, Joe, it's so strange because no one's on Telegram. Like people like us, the influencers are not on Telegram. So therefore, if you search social media, I'm the only guy there now.
Wow, there you go.
Yeah. So if you guys just search social media, you'll see my channel there, latest social media hacks. You can join it, and every time I learn about a platform, I put all my notes there. So recently, Instagram changed the algorithm. They updated, so I shared the updates and what we can do about those updates all there.
Okay, that's awesome. We're definitely gonna have a part two. For those watching,
Let's do
get
part
ready.
two.
We're definitely gonna
LinkedIn,
do part two.
let's do one. I'll interview you. You
right.
teach me LinkedIn. Yeah, you tell me what platform you want to learn. I can share you the rest, but you teach me LinkedIn.
All right, let's do it. Awesome,
Cool.
Eric. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm gonna take your actions now. If you found this interview helpful, feel free to share it with anyone who might find it helpful as well.
Yes, you have to share, guys.
Yes, you have to share it.
About that.
You heard Eric. Please share it with anyone who might find it helpful. Otherwise, we'll catch you next time. Eric, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure for me. And looking forward to part two.
Yeah, I'll see you soon, yeah, Joe. Take care.
All right.